Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to NFL Week 4 DFS Slate Playbook here at No Huddle Fantasy Sports, where we're talking NFL-specific DFS content for the main slate on this upcoming Sunday, October 4th, 2020. Whether you're playing on FanDuel or DraftKings, I've got you covered with all the detail, all the stats, all the information you need to build the best possible lineups for this upcoming main slate. This video is built for you, so sit back, relax. This is No Huddle Fantasy Sports. Yo, hey guys, how is everybody doing? And welcome back to No Huddle Fantasy Sports. And as I said in the intro, welcome to Week 4 here, where we're talking on the channel NFL-specific DFS for this upcoming Sunday's main slate. This is the Slate Playbook, where we do things a little bit differently here. We're going to go in depth. We're going to talk specific players, quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, even your favorite position, the tight end. We're going to break it down, pick out core players that I believe you should be building your lineups around this Sunday, at least to put yourself in the best possible position. Unlike other videos, unlike other YouTubers, I'm not giving out lineups here. I'm giving you information. I'm giving you my best plays, my best players, and why I like them so that you guys can choose. You guys can then take that to the next step, I should say, and build the best possible lineups. We've been absolutely crushing it on this channel over the last couple of weeks. I do have to say thank you guys so much for following, subscribing, being here right now. It means a lot to me. The channel continues to grow, and most notably, it continues to grow because we're doing a lot of good here. We've been very successful, especially over weeks 2 and week 3, where we absolutely crushed it with some of our picks like Dak Prescott, Dalvin Cook, lower owned players. We're doing the research. We've got a great strategy here, and we're making the right call. So the only thing I ask of you guys before we get rolling here is to please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Whether you're new here, come back all the time, weekly, daily, whatever it is, we're doing a lot of good here. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give these videos a like if they're helpful, if they're interesting. Go ahead, leave some comments down below. We should be a community. We should share thoughts, all that good stuff. It's the easiest way to help support this channel. But again, I'm super thankful for you guys being here. The channel continues to grow. It's been absolutely awesome so far through just about a month of football. But besides that, let's get rolling here. Let's talk week 4 specifically, the Slate Playbook, the Slate Outlook. What are we looking at here? The main slate today is 11 games. I mention that because it's typically 13 games. COVID-19 has started, popping up its head, started grabbing a hold of certain teams here. So we have 4 total teams not playing this week at all because of COVID. We just recently, I should say last week, we talked about, or since last week, we had the Titans and Steelers game get completely postponed. There was question whether or not it would get moved to Monday or Tuesday. It's now officially been rescheduled till later in the season. On a similar note, breaking news today, Cam Newton, actually quarterback for the Patriots, tested positive. As a result, they're now rescheduling that. It was a good game. It was a game I was interested in, but that Patriots at Kansas City game, a lot of action involved in that game, a lot of great players, obviously. So there's still a little bit of question of whether or not that will be postponed to Monday or Tuesday. I think, honestly, it will be just the same as the other. They're going to find another week during the year that they will postpone that game till. The reason I bring this up is because you have to check with FanDuel. You have to check with DraftKings. There are certain stipulations that they have put in place, and I don't mean to waste too much time here, but it is very important. I believe if the game is still scheduled within 24 hours of the original slate, if that's the case, 24 hours of the original slate, that will still count towards that particular slate. Now, Cam Newton, for example, will not be playing. He tested positive. But if they reschedule for Monday or Tuesday, keep in mind that could still count. Now, I don't personally think that's going to happen. Again, I think it'll be pushed later, but it's all things that you guys need to consider because that has great implications, a great effect on lineups, on builds, on everything else associated with this particular main slate. So besides that, as I mentioned, we see COVID-19 now turning its head up, and you're starting to see the NFL season and particular games getting affected. The one good thing about this slate is there is a ton of scoring projected. So of the 11 games, 6 games with an over-under of 50 points. I don't remember that many games, I guess dating back a couple years now, on one particular main slate with an over-under of 50 or more. So it's really exciting there. Lots of offense. 10 teams in addition to that are projected with 25 or more implied team total points. I mention that because those are the teams we want to target in terms of in terms of an offense, in terms of stacks, quarterbacks, wide receivers, all the goodness, right, comes from those high-scoring teams. Now we have 10. It's usually only a handful. So again, interesting. I think there's a lot of ways to go. I think that'll help ownership. Two big things I want to mention too. Home QBs are in great matchups. That's not always ideal. We want an away quarterback typically on the road in a great matchup. This week, everything's flipped. A lot of the good quarterback matchups are playing at home, and then a lot of the good running back matchups are on the road. So again, a little bit of a weird thing there. We're going to make do. We're going to navigate. Overall, I think it's going to be a more difficult slate to navigate, but we're going to handle it. We're going to talk about all of those plays and how we can get away with some of those typical strategies that we stand behind when picking running backs, when picking quarterbacks. Moving on to Vegas totals here, and I won't spend too much time here, but again, you guys should always be starting your research here, at least in my opinion. Understand where a lot of points are expected, where Vegas totals are going. All of the spreads, all of that good information plays into your picks, plays into your plays overall. I won't spend too much time, as I mentioned, simply because I talked about a lot of this already. There's a number of teams projected above 25 in terms of an implied team total. There's a number of over-unders that are above 50. All goodness. It's a great slate. It's a great overall slate in terms of DFS, in terms of offenses in fantasy football. Couple I will point out very quickly. Dallas projected at 30.3 points. Los Angeles Rams, 30.5 points. The Rams are projected the most amount of points on this slate. Several other teams right around that number. But several teams, three in particular, I am avoiding. That's the Chargers, Washington, and the New York Giants, all projected below, well below 20 implied team total. Those are teams, offenses that are not going to score a lot of points, at least from a Vegas projection. Unless you guys know something secret and something different, I probably won't be going there with a lot of my players. All right, so we spent a good bit of time there talking about some of the outside factors affecting this particular main slate. And when I say outside factors, things like COVID. And I know we spent 5 or 6 minutes there. I do apologize. It drags on a little bit, but all very, very important things. It's the first time we've seen COVID affect an NFL slate so far. We're early in the season. I just want to stress to you guys, it's very, very important to pay attention to that stuff and see how that's going to affect the particular slate. But let's move on to the quarterback position here, the position that I think is always the most important. At least through the first 3 weeks of the season, you really can't get away with not having a solid, if not above average, great quarterback play on main slate. Whether you're playing FanDuel or DraftKings, you need to nail the quarterback. So I'm going to start with my favorite play on the slate overall. Every single position, my favorite play on this particular main slate, both FanDuel and DraftKings, is Josh Allen. He's $8,600 on FanDuel, $7,300 on DraftKings. He's on the road, which I do love here, in Las Vegas, 53 over under. Buffalo is a slight favorite, -3 on the road, with a solid, very, very solid 28 implied team total. I believe that's top 5 on the slate. All good things here, and this boils down to really this. He's an elite quarterback in an elite matchup, and so far as I can tell, he's going to be low owned. I absolutely love that for the simple fact that he has put up, 30 plus fantasy points on FanDuel every single week, and he continues to see lower ownership. So we're going to attack that. We're going to take advantage of that, particularly in tournaments. And the matchup is great, so I am not fearful. This isn't a super high risk play. It is a high floor, high reward play in my opinion. He's had 300 plus passing yards basically for the first time in his career, and he's done it in every single game so far this season. He's playing awfully well, but he's an MVP candidate at this very moment, along with players like Russell Wilson. There's a huge advantage in terms of pass blocking here. The offense and defensive line pass advantage is plus 20% according to Pro Football Focus, aka Josh Allen should have time in the pocket. He shouldn't be under duress, under pressure. He's been very, very efficient with his passing volume. It hasn't been 40, 50, 60 passes like some players, but it's been 35, right around 35 passes per game, and he's completing a lot of them. He's been very, very efficient, as I mentioned. More importantly, Buffalo has favored the pass a ton this year. 62% split in terms of 62% of the time Buffalo's offense is passing the ball, so you do have to like that. That plays into Josh Allen, obviously. More importantly, that floor that he gives you is from his rushing attempts. He's had 22 rushing attempts so far this year, 2 rushing touchdowns on the season so far. All good things there. That gives you that real solid floor, and then you're talking about a guy that throws for 300 plus in every game. That gives you that elite ceiling, or that basically no ceiling in my opinion. There's a solid team total here, a solid over-under. In general, it's a great matchup. The secondary of Las Vegas by Pro Football Focus has been graded 27th overall. Keep in mind, guys, there's 32 teams, so that's pretty bad. And last but not least here, there's predictable, I should say, wide receiver usage, meaning Stephon Diggs and John Brown, Cole Beasley. Those are the three guys that get all of the passes. In particular, I think it's like 25% of the passes go to Diggs. A lot of the red zone goes to those players. So you can really predict a solid stack with Josh Allen here. So bottom line is elite quarterback, elite matchup, going to be low owned. I really like Josh Allen on the road this week. He's by far my number one quarterback. The number two guy here, I have Kyler Murray. This can easily switch. I usually play 4 total quarterbacks on a main slate. That's kind of my strategy. My 2, 3, and 4 guys all could switch around in terms of ownership, but I want to give you guys Kyler Murray first. Again, it's a similar spot to Josh Allen. He's on the road here, which I do like. $8,400 on FanDuel, $7K on DraftKings, a really good price in my opinion on DraftKings. Again, on the road here in Carolina, a team that's just anemic on defense. They cannot do anything. It's a great matchup for anybody playing them, whether it's a running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end. It doesn't matter. You can attack them. It's a fantasy gold mine right now facing Carolina, but a 51.5 over under, really good number there. Arizona, similar to Buffalo, on the road here is a slight favorite at -3, 27.3 implied team total. Very solid number. He's a low owned quarterback again. That's kind of the key here, and he has an elite ceiling again because of a guy with legs. He uses his legs a lot. He scores a lot of rushing touchdowns. All good things here for Kyler Murray. And so far, this is how this season has played out in terms of fantasy football and DFS. You want the guys that use their legs. Yes, you can score Aaron Rodgers when he throws 5 touchdowns, but in general, so far this year, how is it easier to predict? Well, it's easier to go with Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, who am I missing? Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson. The guys that utilize their legs are the guys that are giving those ceilings right now. So that's where we want to go in terms of strategy. Kyler Murray fits that mold here. He's also on the road, has a huge pass advantage. Again, I like to always look at that in terms of a stat. I want to make sure my guy has time in the pocket. You're looking at a plus 34% advantage for Arizona here against Carolina. So again, even better so than Josh Allen. This guy should have time in the pocket, shouldn't be under duress. He's had 26 rushing attempts, so he's rushed more than Josh Allen this year. 4 total rushing touchdowns on the season. He's running the ball in the red zone too, which you got to like that. Again, what's this doing? It's giving us a floor, and then his passing ability is turning it into an elite upside. It's a fast-paced team. You know this. They're a no-huddle team. They run no huddle nearly 50% of the time. That coincides directly with this channel, by the way. So that's good, right? We should play Kyler Murray. So you got to like that. That means more plays, more opportunity, more fantasy scoring availability for Kyler Murray here. Carolina's defense, I mentioned, it's a fantasy gold mine. I mentioned it, fantasy goodness here. Whatever you want, attack them with offenses. That's basically the story here. On the road, too, makes it more attractable or more attractive to me. Carolina's secondary, if you want to grade, is 22nd overall in football. So that's not the worst, but it's certainly bottom third in the league. The only thing I will mention here, and this could knock on Kyler Murray's ownership for me, I will own Kyler Murray, but will he be my second own? That'll depend on the wide receiver injuries. DeAndre Hopkins is currently injured. I believe Christian Kirk is injured. There are a number of injuries with Kyler Murray's wide receivers right now. So keep an eye on that. If Hopkins is in, if a lot of those players are in, I do like it. But if it becomes difficult to do a stack and I can't really predict which receivers will get the most usage, then I might be lowering Kyler Murray's ownership and going more with running backs from that game. But overall, as of now, I do really like Kyler Murray as my number 2. And that's mainly because these guys are on the road. Some of these other guys like Dak Prescott that I'll mention later are at home. That's kind of a disadvantage to me, especially when they're favorites. So these guys are guys I like because they're on the road here. All right, let's talk running backs. And this is a position, honestly, that we've been absolutely crushing it here on the channel. The picks that we've given out, if you talk about last week, we took out Dalvin Cook here, who we're going to mention again, crushed it, lower owned guy. Austin Eckler, crushed it, lower owned guy. So we've been doing really good at running back. Let's not jinx ourselves here. Let's continue to do that research, continue to make the right calls here at the position. And I'm going right back to the well here with Dalvin Cook. He is on the road today, and Minnesota is an underdog on the road. But again, I'm not scared of that. I still think it's a great spot. And I mentioned it early on. It's a troubling slate from the perspective of the strategy has always been take a home running back that is a big favorite, and that's our lock. We don't have many of them on this slate, at least running backs that we really like in good spots, in good matchups. So Dalvin Cook does not check all of those boxes, being that he is on the road and an underdog, but nonetheless, I still think he's in another smash spot here, and I'm going to be playing him and taking the risk on the road. He's $8,700 on FanDuel, $76 on DraftKings, so he is a bit expensive, but again, I still like the spot here on the road in Houston with a 53.5 over/under. Minnesota a slight underdog at -3, or I should say +3.5, with a 24.8 implied team total. A couple of boxes are checked there. The matchup's good. Houston is not a great team in terms of defending the run. The over/under is big. The game should remain close, and the total projected for Minnesota is very solid. I do like all that for Cook here. He's coming off, of course, a monster performance. I think 180 plus rushing yards in week 3. His touches, his usage, everything has skyrocketed, and it's basically since what we talked about in the last video, which is the coaching staff acknowledged that they were not using Cook enough. They paid this guy. They're committed to the run. They went back to the book here, and they made that happen in week 3. So to me, I think that that's their strategy. They know that they're not going to win games through the air. In addition to that, their defense is really, really, really bad right now, so they need to control games. To do that, they should rely on Dalvin Cook. You saw that last week. 70 to 75% of the snaps went to Dalvin Cook. No other back really saw the field. Really good indication there that Dalvin Cook is the man that they're building this team, this offense around at the moment, and that's what I want to capitalize on here. Now, Minnesota's overall run grade is very, very good. Their run blocking grade, not so much, but their run grade is first in the NFL. That's mainly explained by Dalvin Cook himself. He's either 1 or 2 in the NFL in terms of Pro Football Focus's graded running backs. He's been absolutely excellent when called upon. It's just he has not always been called upon. So hopefully that changes. According to week 3 going forward, that should change here. It's an elite matchup. I talked about that against the Houston defense. Their rush defense is graded 26th overall in football, according to Pro Football Focus. Really, really solid matchup from that point of view. Slight away underdog does give him a disadvantage, but this guy played, I went back, he played in week 2. They were trailing a lot. He played 80% of the snaps. He's not a guy that can't catch the ball. They use him out of the backfield. They swing passes to him. So again, I'm not worried about if they get behind, which I don't think they're going to be behind that much, but if they do get behind here, I do still like the play from the fact that he can and should be involved in the passing game. Dalvin Cook is one of my favorite backs on the slate. Another guy, another expensive guy here I do really like is Ezekiel Elliott. He's very, very expensive, $9K on FanDuel, $7,800 on DraftKings. Better price over there on DraftKings, I will admit, but I still like him on both sites here. He's playing at home versus Cleveland, 56 over/under. Really, really good number there in terms of a high-scoring game. Dallas is a slight favorite at 4.5. 30.3 implied team total. That is a great team total. Over 30 is absolutely wonderful here. So we want to get exposure to Dallas here. I think the way to do it is through Elliott. Now, he will be owned. He's not going to be a lower owned guy, but he's a guy I'm willing to eat chalk on here. We don't have to get super different. We just have to pick the right spots to be different in. Elliott's one guy that I'm willing to eat chalk on. He does check all the boxes. That is why I'm interested here. He's the home running back. He's a decent favorite. High team total, elite usage. I mean, he's like 90 or 95% of the snaps, and he's involved in both the run and the pass. All the boxes are checked. I do really, really like Elliott in the spot at home. He's averaging 27 opportunities per game. From my perspective, opportunities are targets plus rushes. 27 per game. Think about that. Nobody else is getting that type of usage outside of maybe Kamara. And even Kamara, I don't know if he's hitting 27 overall opportunities per game. So that is an elite opportunity, elite usage for the back in Elliott here. He's also has 23 targets on the season. One of his games, he had like 13. So the guy, even when they're down, they're throwing him the ball a lot. He checks all the boxes. I don't need to explain to you why to play Elliott. It's a good spot for him. He scored in every single game this season. even those games they've lost, so they still utilize him when down. Cleveland's rush defense so far this year grades out pretty well, but I submit to you that they've had a very, very easy schedule. They've played Washington, who I'm not even sure who the running back is, Gibson maybe, and they've played Joe Mixon, who barely got used in Cincinnati, but Cincinnati overall not a good team, does not have a good O-line. So I think what you need to do here is recalculate, go back to 2019. Cleveland's rushing defense was really, really bad in 2019, and what have they done differently this year? Nothing. In fact, that they've lost certain players. Joe Schobert, a starting main linebacker for them, has left the team, or he didn't leave, but I think he went to free agency or got traded. He's no longer with them. In general, I think they've lost some linebackers to injury, so I don't think that they should be graded out any better than they were last year, and that was really bad. So I think it's a smash spot still here on the road in Dallas. Cleveland, again, missing key defensive players. They should be missing some more this weekend too, in terms of their current team. So all good things here. The arrow is pointing up for Elliott to smash in this spot. Another couple running backs I'll quickly run through here. David Johnson and David Montgomery, the two Davids here. $6,700 on FanDuel for Johnson, $65 on DraftKings. He's playing at home, so we talked about Cook. I like both running backs. I like Johnson playing at home versus Minnesota. Same deal here, 54 over-under. They are it's a little bit different. This is changing constantly, but a slight home favorite at -5. Nearly a 30 implied team total. Have to really like that. I'm checking the boxes here of a home favorite and elite matchup. Good, right? High team total, good. Houston, so far this season, this guy has not done much. I'm not going to deny that, but they've had a very, very difficult early schedule. You've seen them play in Kansas City. You've seen them play in Pittsburgh. There's some really good defenses there. It's been tough sledding, and they finally get a good matchup here. The O-line, D-line run advantage is plus 9% according to Pro Football Focus, so we should finally have some room to run behind that offensive line. The good thing here is people aren't talking about it. This guy's playing 90% of the snaps. That's second overall in terms of running backs in the NFL. Behind the guy we just mentioned, which is Ezekiel Elliott. So 90% of the time, you're not going to find that. His usage is going to start creeping up here in better spots. This is one of those spots. He offers a little bit of value at that price tag. I think it's going to go higher once he starts, getting more usage here. Minnesota's run defense is second to last, 31st overall in football. You've seen Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. First 3 weeks of the season, Minnesota has been run all over, so I do really like David Johnson in the spot at home here. David Montgomery, also playing at home, $5,800, $55 on DraftKings. I believe this guy offers a lot of value at those price tags. People are scared in Indianapolis. They do have a good defense, but in terms of a rush defense, they're not absolutely elite. It's more against the pass, and I think that sets up well for David Montgomery here. He will have lower ownership, a guy I think that we can sneakily get exposure to and really help differentiate our lineups. Again, playing at home, 43.5 over-under versus Indy. Chicago is plus 2.5, so they are a home underdog at only 20.5 in terms of an implied team total. I don't love that. Again, he's not checking every box here, other than the fact he's playing at home, and I think his usage is going to go up. He's a talented player that just has suffered injuries and has been behind Trubinsky at the quarterback position. Just a lot of weird things going on. I think things are going to start to settle. You're going to see this guy shine, and this is the beginning of that. He's a slight home underdog. I talked about that. He offers the salary relief at under $6,000. Cohen got injured in week 3 here, and that's big. I mean, that should bump this guy's usage. He's not a guy that can't catch the ball. He catches touchdowns. He catches balls out of the backfield. They just employ and utilize Cohen a lot more in those situations. Naturally, he's better at that. But it does not mean Montgomery can't do it. And so if we go back to week 3, Montgomery saw 56% of the snaps, Cohen 32% of the snaps. Where are those snaps for Cohen going to go? They don't have another Cohen, in my opinion. I believe Montgomery's going to bump up to 70+% of snaps. And at $5,800, 55 on DraftKings, that's huge. That's absolutely great in terms of the usage he'll get and everything else. Even if they trail, this guy should still be a 3-down back going forward with Cohen now on the IR. Chicago's offense also should improve naturally with Nick Foles at quarterback. We'll see how that plays out, but I mean, they were bad with Trubinsky and they were winning games. So Foles will help that. They came back with him last week. Chicago, people don't know this, top 5 in run and run block so far from Pro Football Focus on the season. So Montgomery's behind a good offensive line. I like the spot. I think this is a really good sneaky spot, if you can't tell from my excitement. But Indianapolis, I talked about it. They are an elite defense, but they're still 11th overall against the run in terms of a grade. So it's not absolutely elite, but they're good. But they're not a team you would just absolutely avoid here. And I think you can realistically expect like 1 to 3% in terms of ownership here on David Montgomery. That's huge. You don't have to get a ton of exposure to him to really beat the field. I like Montgomery. All right, let's talk wide receivers, and I am pumped for the wide receiver position here. I will say to you guys, I've given you a lot of expensive players. So far, there's been very, very few value players listed. It's going to be the same here with wide receivers. I want to start with Kenny Golladay at $7,300, but before I do, my strategy will again be to pay down a tight end. I'll talk about that. I'm not going to give you expensive tight end players. I'm going to pay down at a couple receiver positions, but naturally this can fit what I've given you in terms of these players. I've built a couple lineups already. It can work. You can't smash all these players together, but again, we're talking core players. I believe you guys take this information, you decide, you can build around these players one way or another. But let's start with Kenny Golladay at the wide receiver position. I am dead excited for this man. Kenny Golladay is in a smash spot here at low ownership. $7,300 on FanDuel, $6K on DraftKings. He's playing at home versus New Orleans in the Dome. By the way, they play in a dome indoors in Detroit, so that's always good for offenses. 54 over under. Detroit is a home underdog. That's lovely from my quarterback and wide receiver perspective. +4, 25 overall in terms of an implied team total. Very, very solid right there. Week 3, he came back from injury. He looked awesome. He scored a touchdown, had 7 total targets. He played 73% of the snaps in week 3. That's going to approach 100 here, hopefully this week or very soon. So if he got 7 targets on 3/4 of the snaps, I think you could realistically expect double-digit targets, and this is definitely a matchup where that can happen. So far, some of the numbers you want to focus in on. In week 3, Kenny Golladay ate up 35% of the team air yards, again, on 73% of the snaps. So this guy is getting not only targeted, and he's getting targeted downfield when he's on the field. A great matchup so far. Wide receiver cornerback matchup is +60%. That's second overall next to the guy on the right here that I will talk about, +60%. So he's in a great spot in terms of the matchup. And some of the key things here in addition to all of that is New Orleans secondary has been bad so far in 2020. They're graded out 30th overall in terms of Pro Football Focus secondary grading. And why is this matchup so good? It was a great matchup with the full healthy defense of New Orleans. And guess what? Both cornerbacks, including Lattimore, are scheduled to miss this game with injury. So that is why you see this matchup at +60%. He is going up against some who knows who backup cornerbacks for a New Orleans defense and secondary that has been bad already. Love the spot here. Love it from the sense that he will also be one of the lower owned elite style wide receivers. Smash spot for Kenny Golladay. We're going to go there and this is how we're going to win this weekend. Cooper Kupp also in a great spot here. I want to mention him very quickly. I don't like him as much as Golladay, but it's tough to deny the position he's in here. $7,200 on FanDuel, 67 on DraftKings. Versus the Giants here, a really bad secondary, 48.5 over under. The Rams, the downside here is the Rams are 13-point favorites at home. So that's tough. From a wide receiver quarterback perspective, it's tough to take it when they could go up fast, quick, and then they resort to the run here. A lot of people like Darrell Henderson, understand why. But I do believe that 30.5 implied team total, that is the highest on the slate, means that they're going to score a lot of points. And I believe they're going to do some of that damage through the air. Cooper Kupp is the man for them through the air right now. Again, huge implied team total, first overall on the slate. It's the best overall cornerback wide receiver matchup at +73% according to Pro Football Focus. So he is in a smash spot, an unguardable player as is. But now he's facing a very weak secondary, very weak cornerback matchup. He's so far for 2020 top 5 in yards per route run, a very, very good statistic to focus in on. 25% of the team's target share goes to Cooper Kupp, so a quarter of the time. So take that into perspective. Let's suppose they throw the ball 30 times in a pretty conservative style game. That's like 7 targets that you can live with. Best case scenario, we go 7 to 10. And in this smash spot, I think he can do a lot of damage there. So just generally think about that, how that plays out. But it's up for you guys to decide ultimately. I think it's a good spot, not a spot that I want to avoid. Double-digit targets in week 3. He had 10 then. Top 10 in terms of Pro Football Focus grading on the season. In terms of a receiver, overall grading, he's one of the best according to Pro Football Focus so far this year. And then the secondary, the Giants, overall graded 26th. So not good at all. One of the worst on the slate, a team you want to take advantage of. Two other guys I'm going to quickly mention here. The first obviously pairs with my guy Josh Allen. I'm going to give you the pairing here. My number one stack would be Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen. Diggs is $7K, so you came down a little bit in pricing there, but still decently pricey. $6,800 on DraftKings. Playing on the road here, all the things I mentioned about Josh Allen play directly into Diggs here. 53 over-under on the road to Vegas. Vegas secondary is bad. Buffalo is a slight favorite, but the game should be close. Huge team total, so they should score points. All the things I mentioned for Josh Allen translate directly to Diggs. Buffalo's offense, I talked about it earlier, they're passing the ball a lot. So again, that plays well into Diggs' favor. 62% of their offense is via the pass. Again, good things here. He leads the slate in terms of red zone targets. Pretty surprising here. It was a stat that I pulled out earlier today or yesterday. So he has 6 total red zone targets on the year. In terms of wide receivers on this slate, that is number 1. He has a red zone target in every game. So not only is he getting looked at, getting targeted, but he's getting targeted in the end zone. Those things matter. We want to take advantage of those types of players. 25% of the team's target share, that's top 10, fits right in line with what I talked about Cooper Kupp. Josh Allen throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game. Think about what 25% means. You could definitely see double-digit targets here. He's top 10 in total targets on the year at 28. He's top 10 in yards per route run. This guy is basically top 10 in everything you need for a wide receiver. So we're going to go there. He pairs very well with Josh Allen. Again, I talked about it earlier, so I won't spend any more time other than mentioning the Las Vegas secondary is pretty bad, 27th overall in terms of grading for the year. Another guy I've been on all week long, so I will mention him here, is Devontae Parker, playing in that Seattle-Miami game. He is playing at home. He's only $6,500 on FanDuel. Really good price on DraftKings at $5,700. I really like the price there. Offers a little bit of value. I mean, I don't have any guy here listed at extreme value, but definitely a good price on him there. Playing at home versus Seattle, one of the biggest over-unders on the slate at 54. Miami is a pretty big home underdog, and I like that a lot typically for a home quarterback, a home stack. I don't know if I'll go with Fitzpatrick, but I definitely like Parker. Miami +6, only a 23 implied team total. So again, that might avoid me from full-blown stacking that particular side of the ball. But nonetheless, I do like Parker. It's an elite matchup for Seattle. He's finally getting healthy. He's one of the best receivers in my opinion. He's just been through a carousel of bad quarterback play. He will stand out at some point. I think we're going to see it this year once he really, really gets healthy here. Seattle's defense, a team you want to attack through the air, 1,292 receiving yards. That's first overall in the NFL, and that's over 200 yards more than Atlanta. People attack Atlanta. My goodness, people are attacking Seattle through the air. We saw last week Dak Prescott throw for like 6,000 yards. So again, Fitzmagic, let's do it here. Devontae Parker's going to be a part of that. Seattle has allowed 100+ receiving yards to a wide receiver in every single game. Who's it going to be? It's got to be Parker. He's their number 1. And overall, their secondary is not awful, but it's still 19th overall in terms of a grade. Not very, very good. And you see the numbers playing out so far this year. I do like Devontae Parker. Moving over to the tight end position here, and this is the position every week basically, but particularly this week, this is where I have to save money. I'm not going to lie, I gave you guys expensive plays or relatively medium to expensive plays so far, so I have to show you some value. I'm going to stick with the tight end position. 2 guys, Dalton Schultz, my number 1 at $4,900, 43 on DraftKings. It's pretty low price there on both sites. I mean, he's cheaper than defenses, so we're going to go there. He's playing Cleveland, 56 over-under. Dallas is -4.5 in terms of a favorite at home. decent, really good total at 30.3 implied team total. All the things I talked about with Elliott, right? Big scoring game coming our way from this Dallas team. He offers value at the tight end position. We've seen an uptick in usage with injuries to Dallas, including their tight end position. So he's the main man now in terms of their targeted tight end. He's had 16 targets in 2 games. That's really good for a tight end at $4,900. We're going to go there. 4 red zones so far this season too. Red zone targets. Again, that's what we want. If he can find the end zone at $5,000, that's absolutely huge. And I think he can do it here. Dallas's offense, on top of all of that, is super fast-paced, one of the fastest-paced teams. Actually, it is the number 1 fastest-paced team in the NFL right now by a good margin, like 2 seconds per play faster than the number 2 team, which doesn't sound like much, but if you look into it, it actually is over the course of a game, meaning they're going to run a lot of plays that helps ensure that this guy has a decent target floor. I think maybe you don't get 10 targets out of him, but if you can get 5 to 8 out of him in this particular game, I do really like that. With the high team total, that could equal a red zone target, and if we get lucky, he could find his way into the end zone. Cleveland historically has struggled versus tight ends too. Now, they shut down guys I've mentioned in the past couple of weeks, but they have not played a good team like Dallas. So I think you get a good team, a good quarterback, and a decent tight end. Definitely Cleveland has struggled in those scenarios. The tight end matchup gives a plus 14% in terms of Pro Football Focus for Schultz here versus Cleveland. So he's my number 1 value tight end. And then we're going to go back to the well here with Logan Thomas. Basically, rinse, repeat. Everything I said last week again applies. If you're not comfortable with this, I totally get it. He has not killed it, but what he has done with the targets he's had, and that's the key here, has not killed lineups. So we're going to go back to Logan Thomas at $4,900. Price has remained stable on FanDuel, but he is dirt cheap, bare minimum, $3,500 on DraftKings. I think that's a very good price there, considering how many targets he gets and how 1 point per reception matters on DraftKings. He's playing Baltimore, a tough matchup here, 45 over under. Washington is a huge underdog at home here at plus 13 and only projected 16 implied team points. So that's not great for an offense in terms of picking players, but Logan Thomas is dirt cheap. That's, again, the point here with a lot of targets. He continues to see that high target volume. He's 4th in the NFL in terms of tight ends with 24 total targets. You're seeing like 7, 8, 9 targets per game out of this guy. He's only catching or only has catchable balls like 2 or 3 of those times. But at some point, that high target and volume will play off. You got to trust the process here, and his $3,500 price tag will get destroyed, and he will be a super value and help you take down a slate. It's a difficult matchup, but Baltimore's defense has surrendered points to tight ends. They're not shutting every single tight end down. I believe they have an injury right now that should help that also. But in general, they do give up points to tight ends. Massive underdog should force the offense to pass more. Da-di-da-di-da, right? For offenses, for teams that are down, for wide receivers. All that applies here. His recent performances, I talked about this very briefly, are bearable. He's not crushing it, but at his current salary, if he tanks, if he scores 4 or 5 points, it does not kill you. You still can make do with it. Whereas if you spend 10 grand on a player, 10 grand on a tight end, there's not one that much. But if you do that in a tank, you get crushed. So it's a bearable salary here regardless of the outcome. Now, I expect him to do well. I pointed him out for that reason. But in general, it does alleviate some risk. So these videos are getting longer, but you guys mentioned them. I got a lot of comments in the last one that these are good, these are detailed, these help you make the decisions you need for Sunday. So leave me some comments if you want me to shorten these up. But moving on here to the other highlights, again, there's a lot of players you can play on this slate. I always talk about how there's not just the 6, 7, 8 players I mentioned. You want to differentiate, you want to do your research. I do want to mention some other guys. So Russell Wilson, if you're playing cash games, is the quarterback to go. I'm probably going to fade him because I'm a dummy, and that's what I do. I fade Russell Wilson. He's traveling across the country, playing in Miami, 1 o'clock. He's not used to that. Let's hope he doesn't put up 700 points, and we crush with our guys. But in general, he's in a great spot, obviously, in Miami. Dak Prescott, he's at home. That's why he didn't make that first slide there in terms of quarterbacks. If he was on the road, I'd be going right back to Dak Prescott. He's definitely a guy I'm still interested in for Dallas here. I mentioned Fitzpatrick. Go there if you want a little Fitz magic. Miami versus Seattle. I might not be doing that. I will be going with my guy here in Matt Stafford. He'll be lower owned. I'm talking like 1, 2, 3% in terms of a quarterback ownership, but he's a guy I'm really, really interested in against a depleted New Orleans secondary, against a New Orleans secondary when they're not depleted. That's really bad. He's playing at home. He's in the dome. They don't run the ball. All things check boxes here for Matt Stafford. He'd squeak up into my top 2 mentions if Kyler Murray wouldn't have the wide receivers of DeAndre Hopkins. So, again, something to consider here. I do really like Stafford. Moving on quickly, though, Alvin Kamara, obviously a sane spot again, especially on DraftKings where you get the PPR points. With Thomas, he is confirmed out. Kenyon Drake here, running back for Arizona. Definitely going heavy Drake if I don't play Murray, meaning if the DeAndre Hopkins gets rolled out and there's very, very little combinations of stacks I can go with. I'll be going Drake, but in general, Kenyon Drake in a great spot in playing on the road though, so that's why he didn't make the list. James Robinson, another guy that's been killing it for his salary for Jacksonville on the road here. It's a little bit of a bummer. Definitely a guy you want to consider. Ronald Jones, Fournette has been rolled out. I do really like Ronald Jones playing at home. I believe they're playing at home. A lot of receivers missing, a lot of weapons on offense missing. Great offensive line, good spot for them to take advantage. I believe the Chargers, who haven't been great, they're not awful, but not great on offense, or defense, I should say. Ronald Jones, nonetheless, should get some usage here. Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, same deal. Play a lot of players from that Seattle team. They're doing great right now. Amari Cooper, do really like him with Dak Prescott. I play Amari Cooper every week. His price remains stable. He's an elite receiver. People don't play him as much as others. I do really like Amari Cooper. Keenan Allen, not a great spot for the Chargers on the road here in Tampa. Tampa's a good defense, but Keenan Allen, hard to deny his 17 whatever targets he had last week. So really good spot for Keenan Allen. DJ Moore also in a great spot for Carolina. I do like Hunter Renfrow as a value play at wide receiver for Oakland. And last but not least here, if I'm going to spend up at tight end, the only guy I'm interested in is Darren Waller. Tight end for Oakland, pretty much a wide receiver for them. He's their number 1 target. So I do like Darren Waller with a lot of receivers missing for that Oakland team. Man, I'm pretty much losing my voice talking so quickly over these videos, so fast. But thank you guys so much for hanging in there. I always mention I build my lineups. I do 150 lineups through Daily Fantasy Nerd Optimizer. You guys should check it out. It's linked down in the description. It is an affiliate link. I do get a little bit of help if you guys subscribe. It does help the channel. It's the only way we make a buck on this channel. But you do get a free month, so it's worth checking out, especially for NFL. You're going to get 3 or 4 total weeks of NFL action out of the optimizer. If you're interested in being better at DFS, building multiple lineups, seeing all the stats you want to see, the over-unders, the potential stacks, everything and anything associated with NFL DFS and optimizers, Daily Fantasy Nerd is the top tier optimizer in the industry. Go check it out in the description down below. But besides that, thank you guys as always for hanging in there. Leave me some comments down below if you have any suggestions, any players that I've missed, anything like that. I'd much appreciate hearing from you guys. But if you're hanging in this long, it's 40 minutes plus. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Follow me at No Huddle FS. Good luck this weekend, and I will catch you in the next video.